Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Beat Your Addiction podcast with your host, John Giordano. I'm your co-host, Scott Jones. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And before we even start, just remind you that this doesn't work unless you subscribe to the channel, like the show, leave a comment, and share it with your friends. I know it's asking you to do a whole lot, but that's how we get the message out there. John, you're not spending time and money on advertising and stuff. We want this to grow through people, right?
Yeah, well, this is important information to help God's kids. You don't have to agree or disagree with it, but let's listen to it and see if it floats your boat. And if it does, share it with other people.
Yeah, we actually, if you don't agree with it, that's how we learn and we grow, is when we find things that we either hadn't thought about or maybe we didn't agree with at first. Listen to it and then make your own decisions. And you know what? If there's something you want us to focus on or something you think that we need to correct, leave it in the comments. We're going to see that, and then we're going to do that. Or if you want to be a guest on the show, you could also do that as well.
And you know what I know, Scott? I don't know.
You know that you don't know.
That's right.
That's how it works.
That's right.
You always keep learning. John, you've been in this business for how many years now?
37.
37 years of helping people. And how many times has your opinion changed?
37 times.
37 times at least. And that's how things grow. We can't do what we did 30, 40 years ago and expect it to still work. Times change, things change, and we learn new stuff all the time.
Change is the most difficult thing people do. And you have to be open-minded and you have to remain teachable. And if you get set in your ways, you get left behind.
And before we start, because we got a great guest I want to talk about, but I want to remind everybody that you're doing great work over at JC Recovery, too. Let's just tell them real quick what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, we're doing some really cool stuff at JC's Recovery Center. It's a faith-based program, but we have an executive program. Go to the website, and you'll see it. We do cold plunge. We do meditation with them. We do yoga. We take them to the gym. We do micronutrient testing. We do gut testing. We do group, individual, family therapy. We do trauma work with them. They go to yoga. They go to the gym. They have we feed them organic and natural foods.
And the staff is great.
And the staff is incredible. We have amino acid therapy. We do with them vitamin therapy, vitamin IVs. We treat the gut. We treat the brain. We treat the soul. And we treat the body. Well, come check us out. And hit the little button in JC's. You'll see the whole thing in the video. And the staff is incredible.
That's right. Go to jcrecoverycenter.com. It's right there on your screen. Or you can call them at 844-524-6873.
If you're tired of going to regular treatment centers, okay, come see what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to John. Talk to any of the staff members. You'll know if it's the right place for you. And most people it would be. Now, John, we talk about all kinds of addictions here. And one of the addictions that's really prevalent, a lot of people have it, but this is talk about shame and not talking about something. The addiction of pornography has really, really, it's expanded.
Well, it goes even further than pornography. It goes into other realms. What our guests will probably talk about that. So why don't we just bring them on?
Let's bring him up all the way from St. Louis, Missouri. We've got Eric Zuzack with us today. Hi, Eric.
Live and in color.
Live and in color from Missouri.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. I'm feeling powerful.
All right. That's what I like to hear.
That's right. And if you're not sure why he said feeling powerful, I'll tell you right now, his website, powerfuleric.com. That's where you want to go to get more information about this guy. So, Eric, John, kick it off, brother.
Should I kick him?
Kick him.
Okay.
Kick him.
All right, Eric, go for it.
Well, first I got to say, John, you have like this, I don't know, I get this like Rocky Balboa vibe from you. Have you ever heard that before?
I'm a grandmaster in the martial arts also.
Oh, awesome. Well, we have a lot in common.
Black Belt Hall of Fame, National Karate.
But he's the New York version of Rocky, not Philly. He's New York.
Right.
Well, I'm a fellow martial artist as well. Do you see there's Bruce Lee over my shoulder here? Can you see?
Yeah, we got it.
Bruce there, and I got the
I know Bruce
here.
And Bruce
some dragons.
I know Chuck Norris. I know all the guys. I've been around doing martial arts since 1962.
Well, I tell you, you've got without knowing any of that, you got this Rocky Balboa vibe. I love it. The Italian stallion. But anyway,
and I'm going to be 78 in August.
Holy wow! You look fantastic.
Thank you. Well, you got everything I tell people to do, I do, because I don't believe in talking the talk without walking the walk.
Yeah,
and that's just the bottom line, and and that's how I roll, as they say.
Yeah, and we want to stay away. All that prevention, cold plunging, and all that keeps us away from the dreaded medical system, or being put in traditional recovery therapy, which, as we talked about just very briefly before you hit record, is that oftentimes that doesn't work. It didn't work for me. I was deep in the pit of addiction to pornography, and I wanted help. I sought help, and I went to all the different 12-step programs. I went to traditional therapy. Of course, they put me on all the different antidepressants, all that stuff, and actually I got worse, because what they try to do is take traditional recovery therapies like for drugs and alcohol, and we're just going to move that over here to sex and porn addiction, and I can tell you it doesn't work, because I was in those programs for about 20 years, and I saw the people come through the program. It was like a revolving door of people coming and going, not getting what better and leaving. And there was like maybe one or two guys, the old guys up there, that were like,
there's only a 5 to 8% recovery rate. And the reason for that, first of all, treatment's not long enough. But what's really important is when you go to a drug and alcohol treatment program and a mental health, they do not address the subacute addictions like pornography, shopping addiction, eating disorders, gambling, all of those other. See, addicts have more than one addiction. They don't just have one addiction. I have never met an addict that only has one addiction.
Yeah.
And there's things that they go and I call it sub-addictions, okay, and they hang out there for a while, and then doesn't work as well as they want. They go back to their drug of choice, whether it be pornography, whether it be cocaine, whatever.
Yeah. I call them buddies. I always say habits have buddies. If you have a bad habit, it's got some bad buddies. If you have good habits, they have good buddies. And one of the things I used to do way back when is I would use alcohol to kind of loosen myself up so I could act out sexually. But then another one was then when I would binge on pornography or sexually acting out, then afterwards, immediately, what did I want? Junk food. I need some junk food. Got to go to McDonald's, eat the junk food. Mm-hmm.
So usually follows I was molested when I was 8.5, and by some boys in the neighborhood, and then I was molested at 9 by my babysitter. She was 14. And I treat people who have sex addiction also and gambling addiction. So we call it RDS, reward deficiency syndrome, which means a lack of dopamine and serotonin. That's what you're chasing. According to your genetics, you may gravitate towards one thing or another. It might be drugs, it might be alcohol, it might be other behaviors or whatever. So what's the confusing part with almost every single person I've ever done treatment with, including myself, was that part of the sexual molestation or whatever you want to call it, okay, felt good for a moment in time, even though the shame and the guilt and all that stuff followed it. And I was very confused about what the heck's going on with me. And that's how it follows with a sex addiction.
Yeah. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. And that is certainly
I'm not sorry at all. You know what? Everything that happened in my life brought me to where I am today.
I hear you.
So me, I'm a happy camper. Well, whatever happened, I had a lot of things happen. If you want, you can go to my book, The Kid from the South Bronx Who Never Gave Up. And
absolutely, I will.
Okay, this is about you. So go ahead. What's going on?
Well, I was just going to say, there's certainly a lot of things that are people that are addicted to porn have a lot of things in common. One of them can be being molested or something like that, or some trauma. And another one that all my clients have in common, all of my clients, is that daddy issues. And this is what I mean. Either the dad wasn't there at all, like, divorce, so he wasn't there at all, or the dad abused him, or the dad ignored him. And in my case, my dad actually was a good guy, but his mom and dad, my grandma and grandpa, were pretty messed up. And so his toolbox for parenting with me was pretty small. And so my mom would say that she was a widower to books, because my dad was always downstairs in the basement in his study with his nose in a book, because that's what he did as a child to cope from the insanity at home. And as the unintended result, though, for me, is that I was ignored. So my dad pretty much, not consciously, ignored me. And I come to learn that that's worse than being abused. Like at least with abuse, you're being, you're being acknowledged. You're interacting with you. So that was my part of the story of being ignored. But my point is that for all my clients, they all have some type of dad issue.
Well, I got news for you. There's a little another take on that one, okay? Which I learned over the years. It's really like, you can call it also an abandonment issue, okay? So, but there's one more thing that people don't generally look at. You're looking at your dad, but how about and you love your mom, you're probably closer to your mom because your mom, took care of you and all this stuff. Most of the people don't realize they're angry at mom. Okay, why are they angry at mom? Because mom brought this guy into their life. And most therapists focused on the dad. No, focus on how you really feel about mom. Oh, no, I love my mom. Everything is great with my mom. But then when we start getting into the session and start talking about, how do you feel that your mom married a guy like this? And how do you feel like maybe she didn't protect you the way you thought she should? And all of a sudden, this whole thing wakes up in their head. So that's just another angle you may want to consider looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the challenges that happened with me also, a lot of people that are addicted to pornography were exposed to pornography at a young age as well. And I was in that boat. A neighbor of mine literally collected every single issue of Playboy magazine. Like now seems like so like soft, but anyway, back in the day, if you had a Playboy, like you really thought you had something, And so I would volunteer to dog sit and house sit for them. And so that was the start of it. And they had other stuff too.
Now you got an iPhone.
So, yeah, exactly.
You go everywhere now.
Yeah. So, but a day came much later on when I discovered I really had a problem. And a friend of mine, she was dying from breast cancer, and we were going to have lunch. And so I was acting out with pornography, lost track of time, had on the blinders, because when I'm acting out with pornography, the whole world is not there, and I'm just got my horse blinders on.
What does acting out look like? You're saying acting out. I don't, where are you?
Okay, well, this is, I call it burning days. I could literally stay watching pornography for the entire day. I mean, the whole day. And I'm talking about getting up in the morning, starting to use pornography, skipping breakfast, then lunchtime rolls around.
Well, that usually goes with chronic masturbation also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Then skipping lunch, then dinner time rolls around. I'm really hungry. I haven't ate all day. So I throw a pizza in the oven, go back to the pornography, then end up burning the pizza because I had the horse blinders on again, lost track of time, burned the pizza, but I'm like, I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat this burnt pizza, get back to it. And so literally, I call it burning days, and it pains me to think. Like, I'm looking out the window here. It's a beautiful day here in St. Louis. The sun's shining, beautiful temperatures. How many gorgeous days I burnt using pornography.
So how did that translate into your life other than the pornography, watching pornography? What about relationships? How did that work?
anger. Well, for one, it prevented me from entering into a lot of relationships because I felt so much guilt and shame about myself. And, instead of like, if you go to the bar and there's a beautiful woman there, it's like, well, I could approach her, or I'll just get drunk and I'll go home and masturbate to porn. It's like it stopped me from approaching women. For one, because it killed my confidence, and two, it gave me kind of like this out. It's like, well, I could approach this woman, but she might reject me. So instead of putting myself through that, I'm just going to go home and masturbate to porn.
Okay, and so what about when you do find a woman that you want to be with? How about the fantasies, and how about wanting to get into threesomes, foursomes, and?
Well, for me, it
you ever
wasn't.
Have any of that?
For me, it wasn't like that. It was more of it prevented any type of real intimacy.
Right. Well, that's what it does, of course.
Yeah. And so that was the tragic part of it, is, and not even being able to be intimate with yourself, like, because you're literally numb, coping, and escaping with pornography. And so anyway, I was supposed to meet my friend Heather for lunch, who had breast cancer, and I was masturbating to porn, lost track of time. So I called her up and said, I'm sorry, something came up. And she said, no problem, we'll do it another time. And then I ran into a mutual friend not long after, and she said, did you hear what happened to Heather? I'm like, no, what? It's like, she died. So I chose to act out to pornography rather than being with my friend, and who I believe eventually someday I'll see again, but at least in this lifetime, I will not.
Yeah, well, what about prostitution and things like that?
Yeah, and so it
goes hand in hand with that stuff.
Yeah, it does. Well, it's progressive. It's just kind of it does have some similarities with drugs and alcohol in progression. So, like, you started off like with the Playboy magazines, and then maybe hardcore magazines. Then, well, for me at the time, then it was VHS, and then to DVDs, and then to the internet, and then it just then you want something weirder, kinkier. You keep raising the bar on what, or lowering the bar, I should say, on what you will watch. And then it's like, this isn't doing anymore. I want to go out to the real world. So then you start going out to the real world. And
what does the real world look like? What do you mean real world?
Well, for me at the time, this was back, they don't have it anymore, thank God. Well, I'm not going to. There was an online site that, I'll just say it was an online site, hookup site.
Oh, okay.
And so you could go out and hook up that way. And I will never forget this one night I went out, and it's always this Jekyll and Hyde, like, do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it. And I was really conflicted about meeting up with this person. So I got lost, and I got to this dead end, and I'm not kidding. It was so strange. I still think of it now. It's like, my God, how many signs do you need? There were so many signs, like turn around, wrong way, dead end, like all these physical signs, like go the other way. Like there's this wall of signs.
And you kept getting thrown in.
Yeah. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, like if I was asking for a sign, this is it, So I went home that night. And but the thing of it is, like, I really wanted to change. I really wanted to overcome this. So I sought out help, and I was told I had to go to 12-step meetings. That was a must, and I went to SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. I went to Sexaholics Anonymous. I went to I can't even think of I went to all the US meetings, and I also was put on medication. And the psychiatrist told me this. I'll never forget this. He said, you will be on this medication for the rest of your life. Those was the exact words.
Wow.
You will be on this medication for the rest of your entire life. And I got to say, I haven't.
Yeah, as long as I keep going to you, I probably would be.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's the best marketing thing ever. It's like, you need my product for the rest of your entire life. So anyway, I got to say, I haven't been on any type of medication for, I don't know, 15 years.
Well, what's changed? How did you change?
Well, so how the change happened when I was absolutely desperate because I wanted to change. I'm doing all these, I'm going to the therapist, I'm taking the medication, I'm going to 12-step meetings, I'm getting worse. And so I was desperate. I'm like, there's got to be other ways out of this rather than the traditional way. And I found this little app to break addictions. And just on a whim, I thought, I've been calling myself powerless over this for decades. And so just on a whim, I thought, I'm going to make my login as Powerful Eric. And in that moment, pitiful, powerless, porn addicted Eric died and powerful Eric was born. I don't call myself powerful Eric out of ego. It's out of having called myself a piece of shit and powerless for decades. And little did I know that little login, those words could completely change my life and countless others.
Well, how did you continue changing your life? Because that was an epiphany. But then what happened after that? Because this addiction keeps coming up. Every now and then it rears its head when you're bored, you're lonely, or you're stressed, and things that happen in your life, it pops up again. I know it does because it pops up for everybody.
Yes. So the main tool that I totally accidentally came across is looking at yourself in a different way. Your identity, like back then I was brushing the teeth of a porn addict. I was, go in the bathroom. I was a porn addict. I did everything as a porn addict. And I had to change the way I look at myself. And then when I did that, then I started looking like what other tools are available out there. You talk about trauma. And one of the big tools that I love to use with my clients is EFT, the emotional freedom technique, or tapping, because it's using your body in a physical, healthy way to overcome whatever the trauma is or whatever.
Well, you've heard of EMDR.
Yeah, I did that too, and I recommend that. It's a great tool as well. I actually did EMDR before I did EFT. The only thing that I like about EFT, and you can do this with EMDR too, but you really don't need anything at all for those that don't know. EFT, the emotional freedom technique, it's tapping. You're literally tapping on acupressure points on your body, and you don't really need anything. Where with some forms of EMDR, you do need like the light bar or whatever. But I know there's some ways with EMDR that you don't need that stuff. But anyway, I highly recommend both.
Well, John, you developed the other one.
I redeveloped the EMDR. I'm also have a master's in neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. I'm a hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
And I also do holotropic breathing. I combine those modalities with EMDR.
Love it.
I don't use machines because then you lose the personal touch with somebody.
Right.
So here's the thing about, and I want to go back into something because, see, unfortunately, a lot of people really don't understand the 12-step programs, okay? Because he said, well, you're powerless. Well, you're not powerless, okay? You're powerful because you're sitting there, okay? And you're stopping using and you're in a meeting. So you are powerful. I don't believe in saying I'm an addict. I believe in saying I'm a recovering.
Yes.
Okay? So
yes.
Language has an important role in how the brain functions. Okay? So that's number one. Number two, these 12 steps, I tell people, whatever floats your boat, if you go to meetings, you want to go to church, I don't care where you go. Whatever works for you is fine with me. But I always like to educate people. A 12-step program, what the 12 steps is really about is really about doing therapy on yourself with somebody's help to get this stuff out of your body, okay, out of your mind, all right? Learning how, hey, yeah, I am an addict. Yes, I have this problem. Yes, I got to turn it over to something other than myself. Yes, I need to get all this poison out of my body. Yes, I need to share it with somebody. Yes, I need to make amends so I can heal myself. Okay, all of this stuff, okay, it's stuff you do anyway while you're in any recovery program. So most people think when people say, well, this doesn't work for me, I always tell people, well, maybe you didn't work for it, because addicts always look to see what they can get out of something instead of what they can give. You know, it's like people go to group therapy and go, well, I didn't get anything out of that group. I said, what'd you put in? Oh, maybe I'm supposed to put something in? Oh, yeah. It's a two-way street. Okay. The way you speak to yourself is the way you respond to situations. And it's very powerful, the brain. And these addictions come up in many different ways. Some people get rid of one addiction and they don't realize that they get hooked up into another addiction. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I'm interested to know how long have you been, when's the last time you did porn?
Right. So let me answer it this way. So I'm going to answer that question. Let me address something that you brought up a little earlier real quick, because I love it. I love how you said the recovering, I'm a recovering whatever, because that's what I always recommend to people, that if they are going to a 12-step program, when they introduce themselves at the beginning, hi, I'm Eric, I'm a sexaholic. In the beginning, there's a lot of merit to that. In the beginning, saying, you know, hey, I'm a sexaholic. I have to, or I'm a porn addict. I have to.
I tell them I'm recovering from everything.
yeah. But once they get over the beginning part of the program, then just like you said, start saying, I am a recovering porn addict, or I'm a recovering sexaholic, or I'm a recovering whatever it is. So because like you said, our words are so important. So I love that you said that about to put in those, because our words are so powerful. That's the whole thing. That's why I started calling myself Powerful Eric. And by the way, what I do with clients, once we get to a certain part of the program, that I have them come up with what I call their power name, or their higher self name, or their Christed name, or their golden Buddha name. And the reason I have this golden Buddha over my shoulder is it's a reminder for me, and also this lightning bolt over my shoulder. I've got these things here for a reason. The Buddha's there to remind me of this story. It's a true story. And I don't know the time frame on this, but approximately 1,000 years ago, these monks created this giant golden Buddha, and they learned an invading army was coming, so they knew they had to disguise it because the army would melt it down for the gold. So they covered it in mud and clay, and their plan did work. The invading army came, but they did not find the golden Buddha. And unfortunately, all the monks were killed that knew the golden Buddha was there. So it literally sat there for over 200 years. And there was a monk outside on a bright sunny day there meditating, and he noticed a glimmer of light. He's like, what's that? And he went to investigate, and he found this gold, and they unearthed this giant golden Buddha. And that is the analogy that I use for myself and my clients. And like that's us. We're buried in addiction and shame and trauma and all this muck. And so the first part of the program that I use with my clients is to unearth them from all the muck, and then we start looking at the gold. We start polishing the gold. And that's the fun part, when we come up with their power name or their superhero name.
Well, you know what you're doing? I don't even know if you realize what you're doing. In NLP, we call it anchoring. You're anchoring people, okay, to certain positive modalities, certain positive, a dragon or a Buddha or whatever. So you're anchoring them so this way they can always go to that, okay, for strength. So
Yes.
it's called anchoring.
Yes,
Which is,
and one of my
works very well when you do it properly, of course.
yes, and one of my other anchors for myself is this lightning bolt, and that lightning bolt goes way back.
Remind me of Shazam.
Yeah. Shazam!
Shazam! And you know.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, my last name is Zuzack, Zuzack, and when I was in high school, on my notebooks, I would draw. I had a lot of nicknames with my last name being Zuzack. One of them was Zeus, and so I'd put in my notebook a little lightning bolt with the Zeus on there. And anyway, when I had this revelation to be powerful Eric, I officially adopted the lightning bolt, and that's my anchor. It's always there when I'm on a Zoom call or whatever. It's always there over my shoulder, reminding me to be powerful Eric. And so what I have clients do when we get to this part of the program is to find their anchor, their logo, their artifact, or whatever you want to call it, their symbol for the new them. And it's really not the new them. It's really the old them. It's really their true self, their best self. So
well, let me ask you a question. How long have you had any relapses along the way?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had a lot of relapses along the way. In fact, a couple of years ago, if you listen to back I have a podcast called Porn Talk. And there's an episode from a couple of years ago, 3 years ago or so, when I slipped and relapsed. So, you know, I have not been perfect, but I tell you that as opposed to traditional recovery, like we were saying before we hit the recording button, you know, regular therapy works for some people, and that's great. But the statistics are really low on traditional recovery.
You know, I tell you what, it really matters also. See, people say the traditional, this, that. What it comes down to is the therapist that you go to. If you're not in rapport with them, it doesn't matter what you're selling, what you're saying, even what you're saying, it's not going to matter if people don't get rapport. See, everything's about relationship.
Yes.
Okay, and that's how human beings connect with one another.
Yeah.
So rapport is key. You can go to a meeting and feel out of rapport because you're not a motorcycle guy, you go to a motorcycle meeting. I don't belong here. But then you can go to someplace else where you feel comfortable. So it's all about rapport. It's all about relationships and how you can make that connection where you feel at least people you can talk with. Okay. That's what makes it work. It's not the program, okay, so much. It's the people and the relationships that you develop within that modality, whether it be one-on-one therapist, whether it be AA, NA, or OA, or whatever A you want to call it, okay? To me, that's the most important thing. So I always suggest to people, look, search around. It's not that the program's not working for you. Maybe you're not working for it, okay? Because most people go and they expect a quick fix, or most people go and they expect to be. I remember being in treatment, and I says, it's a year now, and I says, you know, when is this going to get better? And the therapist said to me, did you use today? I said, no, John, it already got better. See, self-awareness is what these programs give you, whether it's church, religion, NA, self-help groups, therapists. It's becoming self-aware.
Yeah.
It's not labeling yourself in a way where it's detrimental. It's about empowering yourself and not giving your power away, okay? That reaching out to a power greater than you to incorporate into you, because I believe everybody has God inside of them, okay? So these are all the things that make it up. You see, the body that you have and I have is, I believe, is a gift from God, whatever God is to you or anybody else. It's what you do with that body and that mind, that soul, that spirit is your gift back to that creator. So this is the way I believe people need to maybe consider looking at it. I don't tell people to do anything. I say, here it is. If it fits you, the shoes fit, wear them. They don't. They're too big. They're too small. Try another pair.
Gentlemen, we're running up against the clock on time. I want to get a couple of points out very quickly that I've been listening. Now, I've heard you, Eric, talk about men in particular. This is an affliction for women as well, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely it is. Absolutely. And actually, it's so sad. I even have children reach out to me. I don't coach children, but I do have a resource that I send them to. I only coach the man, but I do have a associate, that Beth, who's awesome, that works with the ladies. So I help the guy get over the porn. Then my associate will help the wife to overcome the challenges that she's having because of all this. So it's a great.
Also, her porn.
Yeah,
women have porn. They have addiction to porn also.
Yeah, it's not as common as men, but it is out there. It's
it's very interesting you said that, but it's getting more common.
It is getting more common.
Okay, because especially with women 50 or and older, see, people don't get that part because they get low testosterone. Okay, so they lose their sex drive. Okay, so now they go to porn to try to get it back. Okay, and they go down that route.
Yeah.
And then they start using drugs, and then they start going different routes.
You mentioned a few other things. That first of all, I love the lightning bolt. I love the Zeus idea. My wife's name is Hera, which is wife of Zeus. I mean, I lost her a few years back to her addiction, unfortunately, but I still carry that with me. As there's a part of Zeus in me that I was married to Hera, and and she didn't kill me.
Watch out for Hercules.
I know. Hercules
and her don't get along.
That's right. That's right. One last thing I want to ask you, and this is really important. Most people that have these kind of addictions, food addictions, it's hard to talk about. Sure, gambling, it's hard to talk. When it comes to anything to do with sex or pornography, the stigma on that is so much deeper. I mean, it's almost easier to say, I use meth than to say I'm addicted to porn.
I agree.
So how did you break through that stigma for you? I mean, I love the idea of you saying powerful, and that's huge because I believe sometimes we make the disease more powerful than the person. And we should never do that. And as a matter of fact, the first step doesn't say we're powerless. It says we were powerless, not we are. We were powerless. So I love all of that. But what was it for you that finally said, screw the stigma, I got to say something?
I felt like it was the only way I could really save myself. Like, I will never forget the day I was a friend of mine. He's a spiritualist, pastor, reverend, and I was sitting in his office. We're talking about this, and he's like, "You should do a podcast about this." And I'm like, "What? I don't want to tell the freaking world that I'm addicted to porn." And but obviously, I got over that.
That's exactly how you become powerful. This is like I tell people I've been molested. Yeah,
that's exactly right. That's how you take your power back. You take your power back, and that's And I also.
So for anybody out there, go to Eric.
PowerfulEric.com. That's a great way to get through to Eric.
And let me tell you, I've come bearing gifts. So for any of the listeners to Beat Your Addiction podcast, if you send me an email to eric@powerfuleric.com or go to powerfuleric.com, you can get a free copy of my audio book called Everything You Know About Sex and Porn Addiction is Wrong, 21 Myths About Sex and Porn Addiction. And I also have an Amazon bestseller called Think Big that you can get as well. So,
wow. Hey, you're powerful, man.
and I know his email is eric@powerfuleric.com, correct?
Yes, sir.
If you mention this podcast, he'll send you those free gifts.
Yes, sir.
Without speaking up, nobody can get help. We all have to speak up, no matter what addiction it is, John.
I don't care what it is.
You can't overstate the power of giving breath to what's going on with you and saying what's going
Absolutely. On. That's why the 12 steps, when you're sharing your fourth step with somebody, and the fifth step, you're actually releasing yourself from being powerless. And that's how you become powerful. See, when you get to understand these guys that made these steps up, they were brilliant. Most people don't understand that because nobody really goes into explaining. It's a therapeutic intervention on yourself. And nobody's a better therapist than you. People don't understand that.
I have a feeling Dr. Bob and Bill W., some of the creators of the 12 steps as we know them, would be shocked at what people are putting in their bodies and doing to their bodies today.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, we had no clue. And the access, Eric, the pure access to pornography, even gambling. You don't have to live near a casino to be a gambling addict.
Everything is through the ceiling.
Everything is crazy. So it's more and more important that we bring light to these things and talk about them openly. And we appreciate you doing that with podcasting and in your books and everything. So we appreciate what you do.
I just want to mention one thing before we close. Okay. People say, well, how do I know I'm addicted to something? Okay. Let me just clarify it.
Yeah, I like your answer and Eric's answer on that. That's good.
If you continue to do a substance or a behavior in spite of adverse consequences, maybe you need to take a look at it.
Yeah, and that's basically what I say. I get that question a lot. Like, how do I really know if I'm addicted to porn? Well, how is it affecting your life? But here's even another thing on top of that. If you are having to ask that question, if you're having to ask the question, am I addicted? I think you probably got your answer.
That's a good point.
That is a good point. That is a good point.
I guess we're running out of time.
Somebody who doesn't sit down for 20 minutes every other month and watches porn is not going to answer that question, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Eric from St. Louis, Missouri. Again, please, powerfuleric.com is the website, or you can email him at eric@powerfuleric.com. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Eric,
and thank you for the work you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for being brave enough to get out there and say, hey, I was addicted to porn, and I'm here to help you.
Thank you, Scott, John. It was really fun. And John, I'm going to check out your book. What's the name of your book?
The Kid from the South Bronx Who Never Gave Up.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you go to johnjgiordano.com, let me get that up on the screen. There we go, okay. johnjgiordano.com. And check out his books.
The whole thing, my treatment center, you see everything.
Cool. I'm going to check it out. So awesome.
Eric, once again, thank you for your time. We do appreciate it, John. As always, it's a great show.
Scotty, me boy, beam me up.
And just a quick reminder, if you like this show, even if you don't like this show, share it with somebody, because it may not be information you need, but it's an information that somebody needs. That's why sharing it is so important. So
sharing is caring.
Yeah, it was a little cornball.
What the hell?
All right, thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll catch you next time right here on Beat Your Addiction.
Take care, guys.
Be powerful.